They mocked the pregnant woman in the wheelchair, destroyed her only way to move, laughed as she sat helpless on the floor. They thought she was alone, powerless, but they didn't know her husband was a Marine Corps drill instructor, and he was watching everything through the cafe's security feed. My name is Caroline Ross, and 3 months ago, my entire life changed in a split second. A drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into my car. I survived. My baby survived, but my spine didn't come out unscathed. The doctors promised me it was temporary. That with time and physical therapy, I'd walk again. But for now, I was confined to a wheelchair, navigating a world that suddenly felt a lot smaller and a lot less kind. My husband, Daniel, had been deployed overseas for the past 2 months. He's a Marine Corps drill instructor, the kind of man who can command a room with just his presence. I missed him terribly, but I'd learned to be strong on my own. I had to be. When you're pregnant and in a wheelchair and your partner is halfway across the world, you don't really have a choice. You wake up every morning, you push through the pain, and you tell yourself that better days are coming. That Tuesday started like any other. I had the morning off from my job at the public library, and I decided to treat myself to lunch at Riverside Cafe, this charming little place downtown that I've been going to for years. They made the best chicken salad sandwich, and honestly, it was one of the few things that didn't make my pregnancy nausea kick in. I pulled into the parking lot, transferred into my wheelchair, and made my way inside. The moment I rolled through that door, I should have known something was off. The cafe was more crowded than usual, and the aisles between tables were tight. Lucy, one of the waitresses who'd always been sweet to me, helped guide me to the only wheelchair-accessible table in the back corner. It wasn't ideal. It was right near the kitchen and kind of isolated, but it worked. I settled in, ordered my sandwich and some lemonade, and pulled out the book I'd been reading. For a few peaceful moments, everything felt normal. I even put my hand on my belly and whispered to my daughter about how her daddy would be home soon, how he couldn't wait to meet her. That peace shattered about 15 minutes later when they walked in. Bradford Whitmore III entered that cafe like he owned the place, which, given his reputation as a real estate developer in town, he probably thought he did. His wife, Constance, followed behind him, dripping in jewelry that probably cost more than my car, and their son Trevor brought up the rear, phone already in hand, no doubt documenting every moment of his privileged existence for his social media followers. They were the kind of people who made sure everyone knew they had money, the kind who treated service workers like props in their personal drama. The hostess tried to seat them at a table near the window, but Bradford immediately started complaining. The sun was too bright, the table was too small, they needed more space. And that's when Constance's eyes landed on me, tucked away in my corner, my wheelchair taking up maybe 2 extra feet of aisle space. "Well," she said loudly enough for half the cafe to hear, "some people certainly have no consideration for others, do they?" She wasn't talking to anyone in particular, but she was staring right at me. My face grew hot. I tried to focus on my book, willing them to just ignore me and sit down. But Bradford wasn't done. He called over Glenn, the cafe manager, a nervous man in his 50s who always looked like he was one complaint away from a breakdown. "This is unacceptable," Bradford announced, gesturing toward me. "That wheelchair is blocking the entire aisle. It's a fire hazard. She needs to move." Glenn's eyes darted between Bradford and me, apologetic and panicked. He shuffled over to my table, wringing his hands. "Carolyn, I'm so sorry, but would you mind possibly moving to... Well, there's really no other accessible table right now, but maybe..." "She can wait outside until a proper table opens up," Constance interjected, not even looking at me. "Or better yet, she should consider getting takeout next time. Clearly, this establishment isn't equipped for..." her situation. Something inside me wanted to scream, to defend myself, to tell them exactly what I thought of their entitled attitudes. But I was exhausted. I was pregnant. I was alone. So I took a breath and spoke as calmly as I could manage. I'm already seated and I've ordered. This is the only table I can access. I'll be finished soon and then the space will be clear. Trevor laughed, actually laughed, and raised his phone. Oh, this is gold. Wheelchair Karen thinks she runs the place. He was filming me, narrating to his followers about the entitled disabled woman taking up space. I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to cry. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. What happened next still feels surreal, like a nightmare I can't quite shake. Bradford maneuvered past my table, deliberately bumping my wheelchair hard enough to jolt me. "Oops," he said with a smirk. "Tight space." Constance walked by moments later and somehow managed to knock over her water glass, sending ice water cascading toward my lap. I jerked back, which made my wheelchair roll slightly, and she had the audacity to tisk at me. "Now look at the mess. Really, this is why people in your condition should stay home." The other patrons watched. Some looked uncomfortable, some whispered to each other, but nobody said a word. Nobody stood up. I've never felt so alone in a room full of people. I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands and called Daniel's number, knowing it would go to voicemail, just needing to hear his voice on the recording. The sound of his greeting almost broke me. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't sit there and endure their cruelty for another second. I started to wheel myself toward the exit, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip the rims. I just wanted to leave with whatever dignity I had left. But as I passed their table, Trevor stuck out his foot and kicked the brake lever on my wheelchair. I felt the sudden resistance, the momentum carrying me forward while the wheels locked, and then everything tilted sideways. I reached out, trying to catch myself, but Bradford was there, grabbing the wheelchair. For a split second, I thought he was helping me. Then he wrenched it backward and slammed it into the wall with such force that the frame buckled. The sound of metal cracking echoed through the cafe. My wheelchair collapsed beneath me, and I fell, hitting the floor hard, my arms instinctively wrapping around my belly to protect my baby. The impact knocked the wind out of me. I lay there on that cold tile floor, gasping, crying, terrified that I'd hurt my daughter, while the Whitmores stood over me laughing, actually laughing. Constance's voice drifted down to me. "Oops, guess you really should have stayed home where you belong." People rushed over to help, but I barely registered them. Lucy was crying, trying to help me sit up. Glenn was stammering apologies, his face pale. Other customers were shouting, some at the Whitmores, some trying to figure out if I needed an ambulance. Through it all, I just kept my hands on my belly, feeling for movement, praying my baby girl was okay. When I finally felt a small kick, I sobbed with relief. What the Whitmores didn't know, what nobody in that cafe knew, was that someone had watched everything unfold. Daniel had returned from deployment 2 days early, planning to surprise me. He'd helped install the cafe's security system months ago as a favor to the owner, and that morning he'd remotely accessed the cameras because he wanted to see me before showing up at our house. He wanted to catch a glimpse of his wife and his unborn daughter, to feel close to us after 2 months apart. Instead, he watched 3 people torture his pregnant wife. He watched them mock me, assault me, destroy my wheelchair, and leave me crying on the floor. And as he told me later, in that moment, every ounce of his Marine training kicked in. He didn't explode, he didn't lose control, he became absolutely lethally calm. I was still on the floor, surrounded by concerned strangers, when the cafe door opened. The energy in the room shifted. I was still on the floor, surrounded by concerned strangers, when the cafe door opened. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The Whitmores, who'd been loudly demanding that Glenn comp their meal for their trauma, turned toward the entrance. Daniel stood in the doorway in his full marine dress uniform, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He's not a massive man, but he carries himself with a presence that makes him seem 7 feet tall. His eyes swept across the cafe, tactical and assessing, before landing on me. Then they moved to my destroyed wheelchair, then to the Whitmores. He crossed that cafe in 6 measured strides. The sound of his boots on the tile was the only noise in the entire room. He knelt beside me with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so imposing, checking me over with practiced efficiency. "Are you hurt? Is the baby okay?" His voice was soft, meant only for me, and I nodded, unable to speak through my tears. He kissed my forehead, helped me into a regular chair that someone had pulled over, and whispered, "I've got this." Then he stood and turned to face Bradford, Constance, and Trevor. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire cafe, clear and controlled and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. "Which one of you broke my wife's wheelchair?" Bradford puffed out his chest, trying to match Daniel's authority and failing spectacularly. "Who the hell do you think you are, barging in here and—" "Sergeant Daniel Ross, United States Marine Corps," Daniel interrupted, his tone never rising. "I'll ask one more time. Which one of you broke my wife's wheelchair?" Trevor, apparently too stupid to read the room, pulled out his phone and started filming again. "Oh, this is perfect! Military hero complex. My followers are going to eat this up." He was smirking, narrating into his camera about the crazy Marine making a scene. What happened next was so fast I almost missed it. Daniel moved with the precision of someone who'd spent years mastering combat techniques. He didn't touch Trevor, didn't threaten him, just smoothly plucked the phone from his hand before Trevor even registered what was happening. Then Daniel held it up, scrolling through Trevor's social media with one hand while Trevor sputtered protests. "Interesting," Daniel said. "You filmed yourself mocking my disabled, pregnant wife. You posted it online with the caption, 'Wheelchair Karen blocking the whole cafe.' You have 237 comments, most of them agreeing with you, some suggesting she deserves worse." He looked up at Trevor, and the kid actually took a step backward. "You just documented your own crime. I thank you, but I also have the cafe's security footage showing everything that happened here." Constance's voice went shrill. "You're threatening us. Bradford, call the police right now." Daniel smiled, and it was the coldest smile I've ever seen. "Please do. I was hoping you would." Then he pulled out his own phone and made a call. "Captain Lewis, it's Ross. I'm at Riverside Cafe on Main Street. I need you here now, and bring whoever's on duty." He paused, listening. Then his smile widened slightly. "Yes, sir. The Bradford Whitmore. That's correct." The Whitmore's aces went through a fascinating transformation. Bradford's ruddy complexion drained to pale. Constance's jaw clenched. Trevor looked between his parents, confused. Within minutes, 2 military police officers entered, followed by 3 local police officers, and finally, Captain Lewis himself. Captain Lewis was in his late 50s, built like a tank, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. He took one look at the scene, me in the chair, my destroyed wheelchair on the floor, the Whitmores clustered together, Daniel standing at parade rest, and nodded slowly. "Sergeant Ross," he greeted Daniel, then looked at me. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" I shook my head, finding my voice. "I'm okay. The baby's okay. But they destroyed my wheelchair and assaulted me." Captain Lewis turned to Bradford, and I watched recognition dawn on Bradford's face. Mr. Whitmore, we've been looking for you. You have several outstanding warrants for assault, property damage, and fraud. You've been using your money and connections to dodge us for weeks." He gestured to one of the officers. "But you made a mistake today. You attacked a United States Marine's pregnant wife on camera in front of witnesses. There's no lawyer good enough to hide you from that." What happened next felt like watching dominoes fall. The police read them their rights while Constance shrieked about their lawyer, their connections, their money. Trevor tried to run and was stopped by an MP. But the most beautiful part was watching everyone else in that cafe finally find their courage. Lucy stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "They've been harassing customers for months. They threaten to leave bad reviews. They make servers cry. They've driven away so much business that Glenn was considering closing." Glenn himself, still pale but suddenly emboldened, added, "They told me if I ever complained about them or asked them to leave, they'd destroy my cafe. They've used their connections to shut me down."
Other patrons chimed in with their own stories. The Whitmores had bullied half the town, it seemed, secure in the knowledge that their money made them untouchable. Until today. An older gentleman in a suit stood up and approached me. "Mrs. Ross, my name is Arthur Chen. I'm an attorney, and I'd like to represent you pro bono if you choose to pursue civil action. What these people did to you constitutes assault, disability-based hate crime, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Between the video evidence, the security footage, and the witnesses here, this is the most open and shut case I've seen in 30 years. Bradford tried one last power move as the officers cuffed him. "My lawyers will bury all of you," he snarled. "Do you have any idea what I'm worth, what I can do to this town?" Daniel stepped forward, close enough that only Bradford could hear him, though the cafe was so quiet that his words carried anyway. "You broke a pregnant woman's wheelchair and left her on the floor. You filmed it. You laughed. You did this because you thought she was powerless, that she was alone. Your money can't save you from what you've done. Your lawyers can't erase that video, and your connections mean nothing against federal hate crime charges. The only thing you're worth now is whatever a jury decides you owe my wife." Bradford's knees buckled. The officers had to catch him to keep him upright as they let him out. Constance followed, mascara streaking down her face, all her polished elegance gone. Trevor was the last to leave, his phone now in police evidence bags, his influencer career over, his father's money suddenly unable to shield him from consequences. The cafe erupted in applause once they were gone. I sat there, Daniel's arm around my shoulders, feeling like I'd just lived through a hurricane. Lucy brought me water and a blanket, even though I didn't really need it. Glenn comped my meal and everyone else's, tears streaming down his face as he thanked Daniel over and over. But the story doesn't end there. Over the next few days, everything unraveled for the Whitmores. Trevor's video had been shared thousands of times before the police seized his accounts, and the internet detectives had done their work. Dozens of people came forward with stories of the family's abusive behavior. Bradford's real estate company was investigated and found to have numerous building code violations and fraud charges. Constance lost her position on several charity boards. Trevor's college announced they were reviewing his enrollment status. Meanwhile, our community rallied around us in ways I never expected. A local veterans organization donated a top-of-the-line wheelchair, much better than my old one. People sent cards, gift baskets, and donations toward our medical expenses. The cafe became something of a gathering place for people who'd been bullied by the Whitmores, all of them finally feeling safe enough to share their stories. 3 weeks after the incident, Daniel and I sat in our living room, my hand on my belly, feeling our daughter kick. He was on leave for another month, and having him home felt like the world had been set right again. I felt so helpless, I admitted to him. Lying on that floor, I felt so powerless. He took my hand, his calloused fingers gentle against mine. You were never powerless, Caroline. You kept your dignity, you protected our daughter, you survived. That takes more strength than anything I learned in the Marines. Those people mistook kindness for weakness, and that was their mistake, not your failure. Our daughter kicked again, strong and insistent, and we both laughed. I think she's going to be a fighter, I said. Daniel smiled, that rare, soft smile he saved just for us, just like her mother. Here's what I learned from all of this, and it's what I want you to take away from my story. Bullies operate on the assumption that cruelty has no consequences, that power comes from money or physical strength or social status. They pick targets they think are vulnerable, isolated, weak. They don't understand that real strength comes from getting through each day with grace, from facing hardship and choosing kindness anyway, from being pregnant and disabled and alone in a cafe and still holding on to your dignity. And they never, ever expect that karma keeps records, that someone might be watching, that justice might walk through the door wearing a Marine Corps uniform. The Whitmores thought they were untouchable. They thought my wheelchair made me weak, that being pregnant made me easy prey, that being alone meant I had nobody. They were wrong on every count. And now they're facing criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and social ruin, all because they couldn't show basic human decency to a woman eating lunch. So if this story moved you, if it made you believe that bullies get what they deserve, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe for more stories about justice, karma, and the importance of standing up for what's right, and leave me a comment. Tell me, what would you have done if you'd been in that cafe? Would you have spoken up? Would you have stayed silent? More importantly, if you see someone being bullied, if you witness cruelty, I'm begging you, don't be a bystander. Don't assume someone else will step in. Be the person who speaks up. Be the person who calls for help. Be the person who stands between the bully and their target, because the next Caroline might not have a Marine Corps husband watching through a security camera. They might just have you. Remember this. Never underestimate someone just because they're going through a hard time. Never assume that kindness equals weakness. And never forget that somewhere, somehow, karma is keeping score. My daughter was born 2 months after this incident, healthy and beautiful and strong. We named her Grace because that's what I learned that day on the cafe floor. That grace isn't about never falling down. It's about how you get back up and who stands with you when you do. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And hey, be kind out there. You never know who's watching.